An American tourist in Paris demanded the Eiffel Tower gift shop accept his Discover card. When they said they only take Visa and MasterCard, he insisted Discover is the most popular card in America, so they're legally required to accept it internationally. He cited the Constitution. This is the kind of global logic gap I track full-time. Most channels react to it, I dissect it. If that distinction matters to you, you already know where to stay tapped in. He then asked to speak to the manager of France. When they explained France doesn't have a manager, he said that's why Europe needs American organizational systems. A woman in Rome complained that the Colosseum didn't have wheelchair ramps for every level. When staff explained, it's a 2,000-year-old ruin, she said. That's not her problem, and they should have thought about accessibility when they built it. She demanded they install elevators or she'd report them to the American Disabilities Act. She was genuinely confused why Italian ruins aren't subject to American federal law. She called it architectural discrimination. A man in London walked into a pub and asked for the ranch dressing. When the bartender said they don't have ranch, he pulled out a bottle from his suitcase and asked them to refrigerate it for him. He explained he brings his own condiments because European food is too bland. He then ordered fish and chips, but asked if they could make it with American cheese instead. He said British cheese tastes like it expired in 1776. A tourist in Berlin complained that her hotel room had a bidet. She called the front desk at 2 in the morning saying there's a weird broken toilet in her bathroom. When they explained what a bidet is, she said that's unsanitary, and Europeans clearly don't understand proper bathroom hygiene. She demanded they remove it immediately because looking at it made her uncomfortable. She wrote a 1-star review saying the hotel promotes European propaganda. A couple in Barcelona got angry that the restaurant menu was in Spanish and Catalan. They kept saying, "We're in Spain. Why isn't this in English?" When the waiter explained Spanish is the language of Spain, they insisted English is the international business language, so all menus should have it first. They refused to use Google Translate because they shouldn't have to. They left without ordering and complained on TripAdvisor that Barcelona is xenophobic toward Americans. A woman in Amsterdam tried to pay for stroopwafels with a $100 bill. When the cashier said they don't accept dollars, she said, "American. Currency is the world reserve currency, so everyone has to take it." She pulled up an article about the Federal Reserve on her phone as proof. She then offered to pay in coins, but got offended when they still said no. She accused them of being anti-American and said this is why the Marshall Plan was a mistake. A man at the Louvre complained that the Mona Lisa is too small. He said he drove 3 hours to see it and expected it to be at least the size of a movie screen. When security explained it's a Renaissance painting from 1503, he said they should make a bigger version for tourists who traveled far. He suggested they blow it up to poster size and frame that instead. He called the original a rip-off and demanded a partial refund of his museum ticket. A tourist in Athens got upset that the Parthenon is in ruins. She asked why they don't just rebuild it if it's so important to Greek culture. When the guide explained it's an ancient historical site, she said America would have fixed it by now, and that's the difference between old countries and new ones. Most people watch these moments and laugh. I mapped the psychology underneath them, the systems that create this behavior. If you're the kind who prefers pattern over punchline, you belong here. She suggested they get a contractor to put a roof back on. She said leaving it broken is just lazy and makes Greece look bad. A family in Vienna complained that their Airbnb didn't have air conditioning. When the host explained that most old European buildings don't have AC and showed them how to use the windows, the father said that's third-world living conditions. He demanded a 75% refund for emotional distress caused by heat exposure. He threatened to report them to the Better Business Bureau. He was shocked to learn the BBB doesn't operate in Austria. A woman in Prague tried to haggle at a grocery store. She insisted that in America, you can negotiate prices anywhere if you're a good business person. When the cashier said the prices are fixed, she asked to speak to the owner to discuss bulk discounts. She had 12 items. She then pulled out a coupon from an American Safeway and asked why they won't honor it. She said, "This is why America has better customer service," and wrote a blog post about Czech consumer discrimination. A man in Dublin walked into a pub and asked if they have Bud Light. When they said no, he said that's un-American, and Ireland should be more welcoming to tourists. He then asked if they could turn off the traditional Irish music and play country instead. He said he didn't fly across the ocean to hear the same old fiddle songs. When they politely declined, he accused them of reverse cultural appropriation. He left a Yelp review saying, "Dublin is stuck in the past." A tourist in Brussels complained that the chocolate shop prices were in euros. She kept asking what that is in real money. When they showed her the conversion rate, she said it's too confusing and demanded they post prices in dollars for American tourists. She pulled out a calculator to prove the math was wrong, even though she was converting backwards. She said, "This is why America doesn't use the metric system, because it makes everything harder." She left and went to a different shop, where she had the exact same complaint. A woman in Stockholm got upset that her hotel breakfast didn't have pancakes. She called the front desk and said, "American-style breakfast is an international standard." When they offered her Swedish pastries and breads, she said she's on the keto diet and needs protein. She asked why they don't just have an IHOP menu, since everyone knows American breakfast is the best. She gave them a printed recipe for buttermilk pancakes and suggested they add it to their offerings. She said Sweden would get more tourists if they served real breakfast. A man in Venice complained that the gondola ride was a scam because the gondolier didn't speak English well enough. He said, "If you're in the tourism industry, you should speak perfect American English." When the gondolier explained he speaks 5 languages, including English, the man said, "Yeah, but not the right kind." He demanded a discount for the inconvenience of having to listen carefully. He posted on Facebook that Venice is overrated and the gondoliers are undertrained. A couple in Munich got angry that restaurants charge for water. They kept insisting that water is free in America, so it should be free everywhere. When the server explained it's standard in Germany to pay for bottled water, they said that's a human rights violation. They brought their own water bottles the next day and got offended when restaurants charged a cork fee. They started a petition to make water free in Bavaria. It got 6 signatures, all from their family. A tourist in Edinburgh complained that the castle is on a hill. She said it's not handicap accessible and demanded they move it to ground level. When staff explained the castle has been there since the 12th century and is built into volcanic rock, she said that's just an excuse for poor planning. She suggested they build a replica at the bottom of the hill for people who can't climb. She threatened to contact her congressman about international accessibility violations. She was genuinely surprised her congressman has no jurisdiction in Scotland. A woman in Lisbon tried to return a tile she bought at a souvenir shop. She said, "It didn't match her bathroom and the shop has a responsibility to take it back." When they said all sales are final, she insisted that's illegal because America has a 30-day return policy on everything. She pulled up Target's return policy on her phone as evidence. She called the police to report consumer fraud. The police explained Portuguese store policy doesn't follow American retail standards and suggested she keep the tile. A man in Copenhagen complained that bikes have more rights than cars. He rented a car and got upset when he couldn't drive in bike lanes. When police stopped him, he said bike lanes are a waste of space, and America would never let cyclists take over roads like this. He insisted cars are faster, therefore more important. He got a ticket and tried to pay it in dollars. He wrote a letter to the Danish government suggesting they remove half the bike lanes and add more parking for American tourists. A tourist in ETT Fuel, Krakow got mad that the pierogies didn't taste like Cheesecake Factory pierogies. She sent them back to the kitchen 3 times, asking them to make it right. When the chef came out to explain this is traditional Polish preparation, she said the Cheesecake Factory version is more authentic because it's made by professional chefs. She asked if they could just use the Cheesecake Factory recipe instead. She left a review saying Krakow doesn't know how to make their own food and should take notes from American restaurants. A family in Switzerland complained that the mountains don't have enough guardrails. The father said in America every hiking trail is properly secured, and Switzerland is behind on safety standards. When the guide explained these are natural mountain paths that have existed for centuries, he said that's exactly the problem. He suggested they install cable cars to every peak so people don't have to actually hike. He was offended when they said that would destroy the natural landscape. He said nature is less important. A family in Switzerland complained that the mountains don't have enough guardrails. The father said in America every hiking trail is properly secured, and Switzerland is behind on safety standards. When the guide explained these are natural mountain paths that have existed for centuries, he said that's exactly the problem. He suggested they install cable cars to every peak so people don't have to actually hike. He was offended when they said that would destroy the natural landscape. He said nature is less important than convenience, and this is why America is more advanced. A woman in Florence tried to touch a statue in the Uffizi Gallery. When guards stopped her, she said she paid for her ticket, so she should be allowed to touch the art. She insisted that in American museums, you can touch some things if you're gentle. When they explained these are priceless Renaissance sculptures, she said putting a price on art is materialistic. She attempted to touch a Botticelli painting to prove her point about art being for everyone. Security escorted her out. She posted on Instagram that Italian museums are elitist and don't understand American values of equality. Andy, American in Madrid, complained that dinner doesn't start until 9 p.m. He walked into restaurants at 5 demanding service. When hosts explained Spanish dinner culture, he said that's inefficient, and Spain would have a better economy if people ate on a normal schedule. He insisted American mealtimes are scientifically proven to be healthier. He started eating McDonald's at 6 p.m. every night and told locals they should follow his example. He created a PowerPoint presentation about optimal eating schedules and tried to hand it out on the street. A tourist in Nice got upset that the beach is rocky instead of sandy. She demanded to know why France doesn't have proper beaches like Florida. When locals explained the Mediterranean naturally has pebble beaches in many areas, she said they should import sand to make it better for tourists. She brought flip-flops and was personally offended that they didn't work on rocks. She called it false advertising because every beach should be sandy. She left a TripAdvisor review with the title, "France Doesn't Understand Beaches," and gave detailed suggestions on American beach engineering that France should adopt.